Where can I store my passkeys? I've honestly wondered this myself. As we've talked about passkeys, like I've wondered. Hopefully there's a simple solution. So there's Nick's commentary. Makani, you're on the clock soon. What are three big downsides to browser-based password managers? Look, they can kind of be a pain. I use 4 different browsers daily. So, uh, what are Makani's 3 trusted password managers? Huh, curious to know. He's got 3. All right.
I think we've only talked about two before. There's a recent
Uh-huh.
addition.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, you added one. You
Yep.
caught me off guard there. I was like, wait a second.
Nice.
How many bugs can you find in Makani's code? All right, for all those that know code, let's see if you can find some bugs in Makani's code.
Well,
Yes.
we'll make you'll be able. Yeah, it's kind of a trick question. You'll see, but it's mostly entertainment value. But it is relevant. It is relevant.
All right, fair enough. All right, welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick, and this is Super Simple Security Principles. Listen each week and learn how to think, not what to think. This is episode 47, Picking a Password Manager for Passkeys. It is our 4th episode of our series about passkeys. And Makani saying there's just one more. All
Yeah, in
right.
this series, I'm sure we'll talk about passkeys in the future again. But we've been able to wrap up at least this first introductory series about it.
Fair enough. Fair
Yep.
enough. Okay. So where are we going to start today? We obviously do we need to recap because we've been on passkeys for a while, but what do you think?
Slightly. Here's what I was thinking is so we've been working up to if we kind of look at this series as one episode in a way. We started with the first episode, we talked about the why, we talked about some details, and then our
Yep.
last episode next time is going to be kind of our call to action. We've had a mini call to action along the way, but next episode is really going to be kind of one big call to action episode, sort of. And so this episode is the final piece that we want to address before doing that, and that's talking about picking a password manager.
Yeah.
Because that's the primary method. We'll talk about one other one, but we're not really going to focus on it too much. There is one other place you can store passkeys besides like a full-blown password manager, but mostly I use a password manager, and that's my recommendation as well, at least for now.
Yeah.
The other thing, just to kind of underscore, is we've always talked a lot about the importance of keeping your email account safe for a number of reasons, but one of the big ones is simply it's a master key to your other online accounts. Well, keeping your password manager safe is at least as important, basically for the same reasons.
Right.
Because right, not too much explanation needed there, I imagine. Right, you got all
Right.
your passwords, or at least however many you have in there. If you're just starting out, you might not have many, but ultimately, like I do, I have everything in there. And so we want to be really careful and intentional about our choice of password manager instead of, for example, just using the default one that our device presents to us, which is typically going to be the browser-based ones that I is what we're going to be talking about. Is we're going to talk about what those ones look like a little bit and my preferred ones and why.
Okay.
Okay, so if you haven't explicitly installed a password manager, then every browser these days has one built into it.
Right.
And
Right.
the most common one, of course, is Google Chrome browser. And that password manager is simply called the Google Password Manager. and it works not only in Google Chrome but across your whole Android device. But
Mm-hmm.
again, our focus here is really going to be like the browser usage.
Right.
And then there's in the Apple Safari browser, and that password manager is called iCloud Keychain.
Yeah.
And then if you're using Microsoft Edge, it's just called the Microsoft Edge password manager. I couldn't find any special name for it either. And again, none of these
Right.
are my top choices. I prefer, yeah,
wait, wait,
that
wait a second. You're saying you don't want to share your password with those big people, and you don't want to have those big people generating your passwords for you? Hmm. That's a, sounds wise.
yeah. Well, and we're gonna and we'll talk about that actually. It's interesting that that's your perception because to me, I was thinking if you have a password manager, then that doesn't mean that they would know what was in there. Like that they wouldn't be able to see my passwords,
Hmm.
right? Because that's crazy to me that you would even offer a service like that where somebody else could know your passwords. I mean, I know with Google Docs and all these
Don't you
things,
think
we share it, but
don't you think Google knows your password at the end of the day?
well, yeah, so let's pause on that for just a second because that's my
Okay.
first main point of comparison because there yeah, because it's I'm really glad you brought it up though. So
Okay, okay.
because the one other thing I want to mention first is just the three password ones that I do recommend, right? Not the browser ones.
Yes.
Of course, my favorite, as you know, is 1Password. We trust Bitwarden, and the new one that you don't know about is Proton Pass.
Okay.
It comes from a company that I've known about and has been around for, I don't know, 10 years, I think. They're a long time champion anyway of privacy and security, but only recently,
Nice.
earlier this year, they came out with their password manager called Proton Pass. They started with secure email. Yeah, exactly, and it's good, and it's also has a free plan, just like Bitwarden, that you can really try it out and then pay more if you want to upgrade.
All right, well done.
Yeah, very exciting. It's a really solid offering. So like some healthy competition there. All three of them will keep each other honest and keep them, pushing forward instead of getting lazy. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
And it just meets a little bit different niches, little different needs for people in different ways. So
Right. Right, absolutely.
the one non-password manager option is it's a hardware security key, and I'm sure we'll do it. So here's is what it looks like.
Hmm.
I got mine with a little uh,
Oh,
tie
nice.
dye pattern on it, even.
Yes.
So had to pay $5 extra for the tie dye pattern, but
Totally
um,
worth it.
I think so. So, and it's just you stick this into the USB slot when you need to use it. Um, it can also connect wirelessly with your phone, so you can use it with a phone as well, even if you don't want to plug it in. Anyway, that's all I'll say about that for today. It was not a dedicated password manager, but you can store passkeys here.
Really?
Yeah, and I do use it, and I actually do store my email passkey on there. Uh, so we'll talk about that more, but that's all we're gonna say for today.
Cool.
Uh,
Okay.
and we'll end up doing probably an individual episode. We've already done one on 1Password. I'm sure we'll do one on Bitwarden and Proton Pass at some point. Maybe even the browser ones. I don't know exactly. It's less compelling because I don't recommend them, but maybe going into why I don't might be worth it. But anyway, so what we do want to focus on is the three reasons why I prefer dedicated password managers, a standalone one, not the browser-based ones where it's just kind of an add-on piece to
Right.
the browser. And
That's a very accurate description you just said there. Add-on
yeah,
piece. That's how I would see it.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
I mean, because they're trying to do everything else. Like, I want somebody that's going to take care of my passwords to be an expert in that field. I want
Right.
them dedicated to that, you know?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And browsers for a long time didn't have those. They've
Right.
they've
Right.
added them for a while now, but yeah, exactly. And it's not their focus. So, well, and I almost actually listed that, but I ended up not listing that. So I'm glad you brought that up. The first reason, the probably and one of the absolute biggest is you already jumped right to it before, was the question: does Google or Apple or Microsoft, can they see your passwords?
Right. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, well, and I want to introduce a phrase here because you'll encounter it sometimes in online security, and there's this phrase called zero knowledge encryption. And that's what you want when it comes
Okay.
to any data that you want to keep private. You want them to, and obviously you want to be able to verify the claim, but a lot of times they don't even make the claim because they know they'll be checked, and so if they can't say that honestly, they won't try. Um,
Gotcha.
and what zero knowledge means is that there is zero knowledge on the part of the provider of the service. So Google would have zero knowledge if they were a zero knowledge encryption service, right?
If they were.
Right, right. Well, and in like email, they clearly aren't. Google Docs, they aren't. And so with Google, they say so because I went and checked this just today before we recorded, and they have a feature called on-device encryption, which means that it gets encrypted before they then send it to Google. Okay, which would mean
Okay.
in theory, right, that means Google couldn't see your passwords.
Right.
But here's the catch: it's not enabled by default.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Right, and the reason why I think is because convenience has such a high priority for people, typically so much more, and they're going to get mad at Google if they lose all their passwords. And
Right.
if
Right.
Google absolutely can't access them and they mess up, then they could lose all their passwords and then they're going to blame Google.
Right. Right.
Whereas they don't really know if Google knows their passwords. They don't even really think about it in most cases. And as long as Google doesn't steal them and doesn't do anything nefarious with them, then why does it matter? Right? This is
Right.
the I think this is the thought process anyway, right? Clearly not my thought process.
Right. Right. Nor mine, but yeah.
So with Microsoft, it doesn't even have that ability, as far as I can tell, to have zero knowledge of your passwords. Apple, thankfully, does it by default for your passwords.
Hey,
Yeah.
thank you, Apple.
Yep.
Which
Now
makes
there.
sense because it seems a little different. I've used all of them, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Oh,
You
really?
know.
Nice.
Yeah. 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 So I've used all of them. But yeah, I'm glad to know that Apple's felt a little different. Um, and it was keychain, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
iCloud keychain, because it gets,
Yeah,
by
iCloud.
default they like to store it in the cloud so that you
Mm.
can access it on your other Apple devices.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So,
Now, there are reasons not to use Apple either, and we're going to
yeah.
cover a couple of those in the next, reasons number 2 and 3. But just this first reason is enough, at least for me, to never store any password, at least that I care about at all, with Google or Microsoft, because I don't want to trust. Passwords aren't the sort of thing you want to trust anybody to not look at or to not know about. You want to know that they don't have any ability to see those.
Right.
Not only because of trust, but because of bugs, because that means if there's bugs in their system, then it means that if they could know them, that means any hackers that compromise the system could also know them. And so it's
Yeah.
just more ways they could get out. But anyway. Okay, reason number 2. And this goes back to the bugs question at the start.
Okay.
Okay, and reason I'll say it this way: complexity breeds bugs. Now, as you know, I've been a software developer for over 30 years,
Right.
and I take great pride in writing code that doesn't have a lot of bugs. I'm good at it. It's one of my, I feel like, my strengths as a software developer. But it's hard. It's really hard. And I've had plenty of bugs over the years, despite my best efforts.
Okay. Okay.
And so that was really just a joke, like I'm not going to show any code or ask you to find any bugs, just to, reference to this because so why am I talking about this, right, though?
Right.
It's because bugs are one of the biggest sources of security breaches. And the bigger, the more complex an app is, the more bugs naturally, right? You might think are going to be found in there, right?
Right.
Harder to make sure there's no bugs. And here's what's not obvious, I suspect, to most people. I haven't polled or anything, but browsers are actually one of the most complex apps we have today. Certainly, I would say, especially in common use, because everybody uses a browser pretty much every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and if you think about why does sometimes a website work in one browser or another,
Right.
that's kind of the red flag that can, okay, it's because there's a lot of complexity behind the scenes. There's tons of formal geek specifications that tell how a web page should look given certain HTML, the data behind the website that
Yeah.
and it's just there's hundreds of specifications that have to be built correctly. Um, anyway, there's a lot to it, and
So they aren't as simple as we think of them. Because a
yeah,
lot of
well, right,
times we think, oh, just ask Google,
yeah,
not a big deal, it's not, it seems very simple anymore.
well,
Just
and that's the
Google it.
magic of technology, right? Is
Right.
it hides all the complexity, it makes it easy for the end user.
Right.
Even little kids, they can hop in a browser and start doing stuff. No big deal, right? Start with a Google
Right.
search, some whatever they want to see, and yeah,
Jace
but
does it all the time.
yeah, yep. But anyway, so that's my second reason why I don't want my passwords affiliated, with the browser password manager, because each of those bugs basically means a risk that my passwords will be compromised.
Makes sense.
Now, most of them won't. Most of them won't cause that kind of compromise, but each
It
of them
could.
has the possibility, exactly. And I don't want that. I want my password manager only to have, only have password manager features to worry about, not all the browser ones too, basically.
Right.
Okay, reason number 3, vault access control. What that means is, what steps do I have to take when I need to unlock my password vault so I can log into some website? Right now, I know you're familiar with this since you use a password manager. You
Yep.
have to either type in your password, your master password, or use your Face ID, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And for browser-based password managers, most often it's nothing more than just unlocking your device, right? You have a separate step using
Right.
using 1Password like I do.
Right.
But with
We
browsers,
have that extra layer of security.
exactly. And for me, that's really important. With browsers, there isn't that extra step. And I know it's designed for maximum convenience, but that's just totally unacceptable for me.
This is ultimately why I went away from using Apple. because I had used
Mm.
it for such a long time because, as you know, my house is full of Apple devices. I like Apple's products. I like that I can find stuff across any device. So ultimately, for me, that extra layer of security was what I needed and wanted. And so it's why I let what was pretty convenient go and replaced it with what still is very convenient. Took some time to set it up, but once set up, slick.
Cool. Good to hear. Well, and I want to share a few specific details of what that looks like too,
Yeah,
because so if we say I'm using 1Password on my iPhone, right, which is a common case for me, but this will be kind of similar regardless of what device you're using. So first of all, I have three options as for my primary unlock method for my password vault. I can either type in my master password. I can do Face ID.
yeah,
If I had an older phone with a touch, I could use touch. I used to use that when there was a touch sensor. Or you can actually pick a numeric passcode. And then optionally, you can force it. So, say you pick a simple, just numeric passcode so you can do it quickly on a daily
right.
basis. But then you want to make sure you never forget your master password and you want to add that, extra authentication once a day. You can say, okay, but every day or every 3 days or every 2 weeks, I have to actually enter my full master password.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's flexibility, not just like one tiny little setting. There's that, and then there's also a few settings that I like in connection with relocking the vault. And so I can have it if I haven't used if I haven't touched my password vault for say 15 minutes or however strict I want to be, then that password vault will automatically relock and I'll have to do my unlock method again.
yeah,
So if I walk away from my computer, forget about it, it'll automatically lock.
yeah,
And well, and actually that's a separate setting because you can also have it so if the device itself gets locked, either shut down or your lock screen on a laptop or whatever, or on your phone, same thing, that your password vault will lock at the same time as well.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Yep.
Okay.
Well, and maybe it makes perfect sense because I used them. And yes,
Right. Yeah. You're right. This one you're familiar with. Yeah. That's fair. But the main thing is to know there are you have a lot more fine grained flexibility and control of how your password vault not only unlocks but locks. So to meet whatever security standards you need in your situation, and
yeah,
for me, that level of control is very valuable. I do not want my password vault automatically unlocked with my device. That's the single biggest thing out of all that. That's just crazy to me, and I don't want it to stay unlocked indefinitely either.
right,
I
right.
want it to automatically unlock fairly quickly. I'm probably more aggressive on that than a lot of people would be, and that's okay. But anyway, I have that control. So those are the three reasons: the zero knowledge encryption, the bugs associated with the complexity of browsers, and the vault access control.
Okay. Those are pretty good reasons not to use them. You
Glad you
know,
think so.
yeah, I'm impressed.
Okay, well, good. Yeah, any questions about any of those or anything else that came up for you?
No,
Okay.
so that's simple.
Yeah, I think so. I'm ready for ready for our final stage.
That call to action part.
That's right. Yep.
That's right. All right. What's our call to action, buddy?
To decide what password manager you want to use and start getting it set up. And we've talked about that before back in episodes 7 to 10.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that's kind of a big call to action. So if you need more help with that, come out, either listen to those episodes and or reach out on the forum.
Right.
Um, and if you decide on one password, the one I use, the one you use, it does cost a small bit of money, $3 per month for an individual or 5 for a family.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, the Proton Pass and Bitwarden have free plans, but with premium plans as well for more features. And then once you have Password Manager set up, you'll be ready for the final episode, which is where we get to answer the question, should you use Passkeys?
And listen, for those people that took our call to action earlier, this is going to be a super easy call to action. Like this should be, hey, guess what? For me, this was, yes, we've got it easy. So I love it. Great call to action. And for those that need to review, hit us up on the forum. I love it.
Okay.
That was a great episode, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, that's our super simple show today. If you're not a member of the IHP Academy already, please come join us for free. Stop searching the whole internet for answers and never knowing who to trust. Ask us instead. We made it super simple to find us, and it only takes 2 minutes to sign up. Just visit helpmegetsafe.com. Enter your name and your email. You're in. You can also find the link in our show notes. Thank you for joining us, and make it a great day. Bye-bye.